continues Culinary Seasons, and today we're exploring the source with Jenn Plitzko of Heim Bakery, a woman-owned business here in Southern Oregon. Jenn's a classically trained pastry chef from Germany who's also worked in France and England with some of the top pastry chefs and chocolatiers of the world. I can talk all day about how great her pastries are, but there's nothing like hearing it direct from her customers.
We were fighting. We were fighting over those. Let me tell you. Oh, so much hard work, and these are just. Oh, everybody was. Oh, we were so excited.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Thank you, thank you.
Jenn, can you tell us about what you have here? What like some big sellers are?
Oh gosh, I have so many things. I think the biggest sellers are the Culinary, which is my version of the Queen Amande, which is a French pastry. But I use the same type of dough, but I process it differently. And then there's a healthy sprinkling of cardamom in there because who doesn't love cardamom?
It's one of my favorites, definitely.
Yeah, and then kind of the savory counterpart is the pretzel puff, which was something that I came up with after I'd been doing stuffed pretzel rolls. And those were a little bit more labor intensive, and this was kind of easier. Yeah, I can smear the filling on, roll it up, and then bake it off. Yeah, those are probably the best sellers. And then I cycle through different things. Right now, the blueberry lavender muffins, and the lavender is from the English Lavender Farm, so very local. Those are really popular and very good. Blueberries aren't in season yet, but as soon as they come in season, I'll be transitioning to local blueberries. And then the poppy seed bar is also really popular. Yeah, that's probably like the signature German thing.
Yeah, that was a great one. The amount of, you look at it and the amount of poppies in it is amazing, and you're kind of like, whoa, but I know, eating it is great.
Yeah, some people are a little, suspicious at first, but I think the biggest complaint I've gotten is that it gets stuck in your teeth, the poppy seeds. But otherwise, no complaints. Yesterday's interview with Jenn at Heim Bakery's commercial kitchen.
So maybe if you can give a little backstory of what you've experienced, how you got into the baking and into pastries.
Yeah, I grew up in Germany, and the school system in Germany is different than it's here. Yeah. So I actually back then it was still going. You were going to school for 13 full years if you were finishing the equivalent of like going to high school. But after school, it was kind of clear that I didn't want to like go down like the academic route, and so I was kind of looking into like what could I study or go to university for, and I was also looking at different apprenticeships. And so I did do multiple weeks of internships at a hairdressing salon, and it was really, really boring. So, and then one of the other things I did was, because I'd always loved baking, and my mom always baked for us at home. I have a younger brother. So she always cooked and baked, and then my Oma, my grandma, my German grandma, she also was a big baker, and so that was very informative. Like I always grew up with cake for like all kinds of occasions, or like muffins, and my mom, she did everything by hand basically, like when we were like creaming butter and sugar for cookies. Yeah, I love that stuff. I always have had a sweet tooth too. So I went into a kitchen and I loved it. I loved kind of the fast-paced environment, and I loved doing something and having something to show at the end of the day. And in Germany, the way it works is that when you are doing an apprenticeship, you're going also to school, and then the rest of the week you would work in the kitchen, and you would work like for an actual business. And so I did that for 2.5 years, and then I went to England for half a year to do an internship there.
And everything you were doing was pastry?
All pastry,
all
yep.
Pastry.
I was really interested in chocolate work.
Yeah.
So I was working for William Curley, who is a really great chocolatier, and he does French patisserie as well. He has a couple boutique shops in London. And yeah, they're definitely kind of fancy, but I learned a lot. And
sure.
Yeah, and I primarily did the chocolate work there. And then after that, I went back to Germany, worked for a hot moment, and then went back to trade school. And that kind of trade school is, you basically could do it like over a longer period of time, or you can do an intensive, which I did. And so you went to school 6 days a week, get you set to like run a business.
Okay.
So you were doing practical work too. They had a kitchen, not unlike this one. And then I just kept on working. And 15 years later, here I am.
Just like that.
Just like that, yeah.
That's how we're all here, yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, you're talking about a few things that hit home for me. The mom and grandmothers.
Yes.
That we either learned through osmosis or they took the time to teach. And
yeah, like my mom took both my mom and my oma took time to teach me how to make bong yeasted dough.
Wow.
And so just to get the feel for that, and it could be like sweet or savory, like for pizza dough, but also for these amazing like yeasted braids that my oma would make with poppy seed filling, with nut filling. One of the key things was that once you've kneaded the dough, but they always said that you kind of, if you give the dough like a good pat, a little slap, it's supposed to feel like a baby's butt. So that's the marker, for good yeasted dough.
There's a lot of things in cooking that, there's things you learn along the way that are little helpful tips, and that being one of them.
Exactly.
So, at what point did you go from Germany to the U.S.?
My mom, she is originally from Oregon, from Coos Bay, from the southern Oregon coast. And she met my dad in Eugene, and I was born over in Germany. They eventually got married. I was born over there. And then we had always gone on summer vacations to visit Oregon.
Oh, wow.
So, so I was familiar with Oregon. And when I was finished with trade school, I'd saved up some money to go travel, and I wanted to do like a U.S. trip. Nice. And so with a friend, we went kind of like up and down the West Coast, and I kind of got stuck in Portland. Met really cool folks who, Portland back then is different than it's now. It was still very DIY, very creative, at least the crowd that I fell into. So, and so I wanted to stay. And I did for half a year, and I worked for Voodoo Donuts as a part-time job, which was very interesting.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
That was around a decade ago, and so I've been in Oregon for a decade.
And then you started, I think it was 2015.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I started with 3, first with 2, and then I added another one, farmers markets in Portland.
Nice.
Yep.
Doing similar things you're doing today?
Some of it, and some of the recipes have just come over time. Like back then I used to do stuffed pretzel buns, and those eventually evolved into the pretzel puffs that I sell now.
Yeah.
So there, just over the years, there's just been some recipe development. Yeah, because that is one of the things that I baked fresh in the bake shop every day, and then also for the farmers markets. There's some things I bake the day before, and there are other things that I bake off in the morning, and the pretzel puffs are one of them.
Nice.
Yeah,
there's definitely things in baking that you can do a day ahead, and they're good, and definitely things that quality-wise you don't want to do a day ahead.
Exactly.
Or you went from farmers markets to opening a bakery.
Yeah. Because I was also doing wholesale at the same time when I was doing the farmers markets, and I was just driving around a lot, and it was getting kind of tedious, and I realized I really don't like making all these deliveries, and this is not what I want. And I was working at the same time part-time in a cafe too, or in a little bake shop. Yeah. And I just dreamt of having a little bake shop of my own, and then I really had to sit with it for a while because that was still a big investment. But all in all, still very, very lucky. I mean, I think I was the typical German, like very scrappy at the start too.
Sure,
Like I enlisted a lot of help. I did a lot of things myself or with friends.
Yeah.
And when I was doing the build out for the space, and I was also looking for a space that already had things installed.
Well, I think you went about it a smart way, and not all restaurant owners or people who want to open restaurants think ahead like that. So.
No, but I was also really lucky because I had a great mentor. My former boss, Amanda, she was really by my side. I also had a great landlady, the space that I rented out. She also really wanted to support a small, especially female-owned business.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff came together in that moment, and so that was a great experience. I had over 1.5 years without COVID, so normal.
Yeah.
That was great, and I just had figured out my work-life balance, and then COVID came around the corner. So,
When COVID hit, were you doing takeout more, or?
I was actually, I went for a whole different concept because it was a little sudden with COVID and with the restaurants closed, or like everyone closing.
Yeah.
And so I actually had a little retail area in my space too, like for local artisans. So I had all this product, and back then, not a lot of people immediately went into an online shop. That came a little later. So I decided to make these, I first called them care packages, and they were, they later morphed into what I call the CSG, a community supported goods package.
Oh, nice.
And it was items from me, but items from other local producers. I was also trying to support other woman-owned or career-owned businesses as well. I did them every 2 weeks, and there was always a soup and bread and pastries and a baking kit, a dough that you could make something with, like a quiche dough or pizza dough or like a soda bread dough or something. And then there was also always, I worked with a farm in Portland that's very dear to my heart, Flying Coyote Farm. There was always veggies from them in there. Seasonally, I was getting fruit from a BIPOC, also woman-owned farm or family-owned farm. So,
Nice.
yeah.
So you just got really creative, and
I did, and then I had a complete creative burnout. So that was a little intense. And I ultimately, it was so hard because I had put so much of my, I love the aesthetics of my place, and I had put so much love into it, and so many people had as well, that it was really painful to close shop.
So this is what you're making right now is, you said peanut butter?
Peanut butter and jelly cookies. Yep.
Peanut butter and jelly cookies.
Exactly.
Nice.
And peanut butter with the raspberry chocolate. I really stray away from artificial colors or flavors.
I figured you probably did, stray away from any artificial as much as possible.
For sure, definitely.
Just in trying your products and the flavor, the quality. You moved down here in beginning of this year?
This year in February. Yeah, and I've also been really welcomed in the markets too. Feels good, and I feel warm and fuzzy, like a lot of positive feedback.
Since you grew up in Germany and learning the German breads and German pastries.
Well, I actually didn't learn bread, but there are 2 different apprenticeships in Germany. One for a bread baker and one for a sweet baker / pastry chef.
What would you say, like percentage-wise, of what you're baking or have baked for the bakery in Portland and the farmers markets is German versus French or something else?
Oh, I feel like that's a really hard question.
It's cool.
But it's so hard. I think like I will do like mashups of things too, I guess, like and bringing in like different influences and stuff. Or like when I do hazelnuts, or when I do sticky buns, it's actually like instead of pecans, I use hazelnuts, which is more typically German.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I kind of play with it a little. And then also I have to cater to what my customers like as well. And so I live in America, and so like I like a good biscuit or scone too, which I guess like scones are maybe originally from England, but yeah, it's interesting. Like people like what they like. A lot of my recipes or recipe iterations have come from friends or chefs that I used to work with.
Yeah.
So it feels like there's also oftentimes like a little bit of history in the recipes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like this. I mean, one thing I guess I want to like maybe still mention or bring awareness to is that there are, or I think it's becoming more and more common to support women-owned businesses or BIPOC-owned businesses or career-owned businesses or all of the above. And so that's just something that I think is, that I used to not want to put myself like too much into the spotlight around that. Or like when I had the bake shop, I didn't want to like get too political ever. But I do think that as a business owner too, you have a voice. And so I am also trying to, especially having moved to a more, I guess coming from Portland, but a more rural area, like wanting to like be able to use the platform that I have wisely.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Sit back for my fix.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so these are amazing, by the way. I tried it for the first time last week.
Awesome.
So good.
Good. Yay. Hi there. Thank you so much for your patience, ladies.
We went and bought plants.
Beautiful. Wonderful.
And I got one of the cardamoms and one of the poppy seeds.
Perfect. find me, right now we're in Medford at the Thursday Rogue Valley Growers Market, and then I'm also at the Rogue Valley Growers Market in Ashland, both on Tuesdays and on Saturdays.
Great.
Yep.
And we can find you on a website as well?
Yes, absolutely. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's www.heimcreative.com.
I want to thank Jen for having me today and showing me her baking
My
process
pleasure.
on some items yesterday, and hope she has some great sales today.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Tony.
Hey, Tony with Culinary Seasons, and today we're exploring the source with Jenn Plitzko of Heim Bakery, a woman-owned business here in Southern Oregon. Jen's a classically trained pastry chef from Germany who's also worked in France and England with some of the top pastry chefs and chocolatiers of the world. I can talk all day about how great her pastries are, but there's nothing like hearing it direct from her customers.